Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, family. I am Rejan de Marquis Leve of the Washita Al-Moricano Sovereign Empirical Nation. And today's video, we're going to be talking about some very, very serious topics. So, my genre has been very interesting, to say the least. And, so you guys can just get ready for me because this is going to be quite an extensive video breakdown. You guys know that I would never, ever, ever lie to you, right? I would never lie to my audience. I have nothing to lie about. Dealing with the United States Federal Commercial de facto Municipal Service Corporation in 2023 is very, very fucking hectic. On top of that, when you have a very common name, the United States is not very good at protecting your identity. Okay? And anybody who's lived in the U.S. territories, North America, for the last 40 to 60 years can tell you this. Hell, Donald Trump can tell you this. And that man is damn near 81. So, with that being stated, as it pertains to my identity, it's been not a struggle because I grew up in my culture, but because of the legal system, because of the fraud, because of us being miseducated and not properly educated. You know, the truth is in the books, the truth, but thanks to having this smartphone, we can look things up much, much quicker. And with that being stated, because we can look up things at a much swifter pace than our predecessors, the former generations, things come much, much smoother and easier for us. And I don't take that for granted. But basically, today, I was told that I've been banned from Social Security. Yes, bitch. I've been banned from Social Security. So, the agency supervisor that I spoke with today, she told me that she couldn't see, and I've only been to this Social Security office twice, today being my third time, and like they say, 3 times is the charm. And she notifies me, and she's like, well, it doesn't say like what you did or anything, but you know, it just assumes or whatever. And so basically I've been flagged. It's not a ban, but it's a limited services type of situation where, you know, I'm being treated like, at first I felt like I was being treated like VIP or some shit. Like, oh, okay, because they called me in there. I was the first one in. I wasn't the first one sitting down on this second visit that I went to this office, but I was the first one called. And I presented them with my Moorish American National Tribal Identification Card. And I got my business done and I was in and out. So I was very, very confused today when it happened again. And the man stops, he goes around, and then a supervisor comes out and she speaks with me. Like I said, she didn't state what exactly it was that I had done to receive this type of flagging and ban, but she stated that it was from the year 2018. 2018 was such a crazy year, but I had to fight tooth and nail with organizations doing business under the United States umbrella, and it's like I was only 21, 22 at this time. I was not aware of the level of fraud, the level of trickery, the level of the ways that people will try to do things to gain access to your identity. So at 28, I'm much, much, much more aware of the fraudulent things and actions that people do, especially now that we're living in the digital era and we're living in the era of American socialism. And so I'm much, much more private now, but it's still, dealing with the United States de facto system is still very, very hectic because these people are fraudulent. And this is why we must drain the swamp. And if you work for the U.S. government, I understand this is your job, this is your livelihood, but at the end of the day, everyone doesn't have the same moral ethic values. Okay, I personally will not do business with somebody that I know or anyone or agency or corporation or charter company that is committing fraud. And the United States federal government has been committing fraud. And all of this fraud has been trying to be cleaned up by people who aren't even citizens of the United States. Okay, and so to drive this point home, in 2019 or 2020, I was at the Social Security office, and the ladies, they were like my age. They showed me like their computer screen, like they turned their computer around for me to visually observe the truth of what they were telling me. And the truth is that my tribal nation is not in the United States Social Security database of tribal nations or tribes. And I found out later on after that my tribal nation does not have federal recognition under the United States de facto commercial system, because in 1933, the United States began the Social Security Administration, and Aboriginal, Indigenous, Native American people were not citizens of the United States at this time. And to further prove that point, my biological grandfather did not have a birth certificate with the United States, and he was born in 1934, 1935, 2 years after they started the Social Security in the Union of States of Al Morocco, turned United States de facto commercial federal service municipal corporation. So not only is Washita Nation not listed in the database, we're also not under or affiliated with the Interior Bureau of Indian Affairs, right? So Washita Nation, the Washita Almorticanos sovereign empirical nation, we are not under the jurisdiction of the United States whatsoever. And most Native tribes who are doing business under the Interior Department of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, they have their own Native American police task force. So that way, if Native Americans commit some type of crime or, unlawful violation or treaty violation, they're dealt with by members of their own tribe who are doing de facto business with the commercial United States in that capacity. Now, again, if you're new to this channel, you will probably not be used to this, but I'm not black. Nothing about this skin reads black. My hair might say kinky, it might say nappy, but nothing about my skin complexion gives black. I do not subscribe to being called black. I do not subscribe to being called white. I do not subscribe to being called biracial. I subscribe to having a nationality and enforcing that nationality as it pertains to these corrupted, perverted institutions now in operation currently by the United States federal government. And so with that being stated, je suis de la Washita. Je viens de la Nouvelle-Orléans, de Washita Almoricanos. I am Washita. My nationality is Washita Native American. I am indigenous to the Americas, North America to be exact, Southeast Louisiana State Republic territory to be even more specific. And I found out in 2017 that I have been being lied to about my vision by medical examiners at certain optometry and ophthalmology offices. And I'm not gonna lie, I was very, very depressed in 2018. And so, I do remember going off at the Social Security office, but I was removed and I came back the next day and did business. And so I'm thinking, because I've never received the notice that I've been banned. And, so the lady who I spoke with today, she put me on hold and she came back because first she was like, oh, I'm going to email you this form. Then she comes back on the phone and she's like, oh, well, actually, there is no appeal form. So just draft a letter. And I'm thinking, what probably happened is that I have a much more connected relationship with the agency's supervisor at this particular Social Security office in Georgia State Republic. And basically, the supervisor there, she knows me now. She knows my personality. She knows that I come in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. She understands that I am much more mature than most people my age. And so, basically, that's probably why they never issued the ban, because I've gone back to this same Social Security office. This is the only office that I use when I need something from Social Security. So why was I never given any type of notification? And when I get mail, my mail is held for me by a business organization. And I've never received any mail from 2018 onward stating that I had a ban at this Social Security office. So I thought that was very, very, very interesting and weird. But I just got off the phone with someone who I work very closely with, and he's like, man, yeah, your parish is just very bad with business. And I'm like, I believe you, because the French people had to come here and really start maneuvering stuff or whatever, and that goes within itself. People often don't realize the Louisiana Purchase is null and void. The Louisiana Purchase never happened. The state of Louisiana doing business as the state of Louisiana, the governor doing business as the state of Louisiana, the prosecutors doing business as the state of Louisiana. All of these people are de facto corporate agents. They have no lawful jurisdiction over Aboriginal and Indigenous people or Native Americans because they are corporate agents and they are foreign. The United States is registered as a foreign business to North America. Therefore, as a North American, Indian, or Native American or Indigenous Aborigine, I am outside of the United States jurisdiction. And the Louisiana Purchase never happened. There are court records and documents to prove that the United States does not own any land in the Midwestern part of North America. What they do have jurisdiction over is their quasi-commercial corporate company. And so any and all pilgrims, Caucasian people who identify as white, which is also not a nationality, they're doing business in their commercial, all capital capacity. So yeah, I didn't think I would ever have to make one of these videos and put out all of this truth, but apparently it's needed. And so like the lady said, she told me to draft a letter, and as a Aboriginal Native consul, I don't really like to use the word attorney. That's a commercial corporate term for someone who is doing business and using British common law in North America. which is all 48 continental states corporate courts, because the courts are no longer de jure. They are strictly for the commercial enterprise of gaining revenue from people who were issued Federal Reserve accounts by these so-called state vital registrars who created the all capital name that you see and find on your business paperwork. If you look at your pill bottle, your name is in all capital letters. If you look at the name on the birth certificate, your name may be in all capital letters. If you look on your state issued driver's license, your state issued identification card, your name is in all capital letters. That all capital name was not given to you by your mother or father. It was issued by a corporate agent working for a corporation doing business as the state of, in whatever state you're residing or domiciled in. So, in a nutshell, everybody knows that I'm very educated and I'm very intelligent, and being visually impaired has given me a side of life that not many people will ever get to know unless they actively try to live with limited sight, i.e. putting on an eye patch or putting on a blindfold and actually mimicking what people who have low vision, visual impairments, or are totally blind are going through cognitively on a day-to-day basis. So I was told to draft a letter up and bring it to this location, but I just want to know why. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm an angel. Beyonce, no angel. I'm not going to pretend to sit like I'm perfect, but I'm justified in going the fuck off because I have limited fucking sight. And we have people who are working in the United States in these public departments, and they're not abiding by international law. They're not abiding by uniform commercial codes. They're not abiding by treaty law. Or even valuing people's constitutional rights. And it's at every level, every legislative, executive, and judicial level of government. So-called quasi-government. Commercial government. And so that's why I say, these days, the United States is much more of a hassle than it is a benefit to deal with. And before I let a motherfucker bankrupt me, I will bankrupt you. I'm the secured party creditor, bitch. And so, I am learning, and I thank my custodians for all of their help. But black people, y'all are lost in the motherfucking sauce. And only we can free our land. But we cannot free our land continuing to operate in misnomers. You want to be black and prideful, that's okay. You want to have brown pride, that's okay. But understand that you're operating in an illiterate capacity that has no international recognition. Black is not a nationality. White is not a nationality. U.S. citizen is not a nationality. There's no such thing as a U.S. national. You might be treated like a national when in fact you're actually not, but that's one of the perks of white privilege. But nevertheless, I feel justified in how I handle myself because there are people, as you can see, who will lie to you straight to your motherfucking face. Straight to your face. And I want no type of people like that around me. Y'all can burn. Y'all can stay in the hell that you've created for yourself here on earth. But I'm not gonna entertain fraudulent motherfuckers. I'm not gonna entertain anybody who has ulterior motives. Just like Biden trying to motherfucking offer African nations a meal apiece when you just the motherfucking gave Ukraine 40 billion motherfucking dollars. Now you gonna offer African nations a meal apiece? That's like, it's like 59 to 60 different countries in Africa. So that's $60 million. What's 60 million to that 40 billion you just had wired over to motherfucking Ukraine that Zelensky's wife is using to go shopping in France? Please let me know. But see, like I say, people have to want their freedom and exercise it, and commercially and politically. And I exercise who I am politically, culturally, all day, every day. And a lot of people, they tell me how, they applaud me. I've had people tell me how much they applaud me operating my true capacity. I'm never going to be black. I don't identify as that on paper. And because I'm not a U.S. citizen, I'm definitely not going to subscribe to being black. To be black means that you're stateless. It means that you have no national statehood. And so, I thank the United Nations for their international recognition of my tribal nation. I thank Donald Trump for entering bills to support tribal sovereignty, because from my knowledge, Washita Nation, the Kingdom of Morocco, and the Union Estates, we're all supposed to be operating in one unified capacity. Which is why I state, my nation as the Washita Al-Mordicanos Empirical Nation, because the King of Morocco truly has all of the jurisdiction over the affairs taking place on his soil in the United States federal territorial jurisdiction. And so this is why I call on the King of Morocco to make a public proclamation, these pilgrims are finally telling the truth. The United States is bankrupt. The United States has been bankrupt since 1933, and when they changed the the dollar to the Federal Reserve promissory note, the promissory note is the private legal tender of the British Roman alliance. And so we think that these things have value. They indoctrinate us. They get celebrities to, make these videos talking about how much money they have and all this stuff. But we're all on the same basic spiritual level, absent of dollars. As the Native American Proverbs goes, it won't be until the last river dries up and tree chopped down that people will realize you can't eat paper. And I really hope that we never get to that point. But, it's worth mentioning to give people a warning. But I feel very justified in how I acted, because a lot of these so-called people who identify as African American or black, they are illiterate to national character, origin, and cultural way of being. And so it's refreshing when we have people from different regions outside of the Western Hemisphere domicile in North America, because they bring with them their culture and their heritage in the proper way of doing government business. Because as you can see now, the United States is failing at even the most basic local functions of government. These pilgrims are broke, and all they know how to do is steal people's shit and steal motherfucking land. But those days are up. Then the lady I was on the phone with today at Social Security, this lady is coughing her motherfucking lungs out over the phone. I'm like, oof, thank God you can't get COVID through the fucking phone. But she kept apologizing. I'm like, you're fine. Look, baby, all I can advise you to do is drink you some hot tea for the next week. Okay? Because that's a bad cough. Bad cough. Being vegan, I rarely get sick. And so, people tell me they admire my body, and it's like, yeah, I work for this body. I disciplined my diet for this body. Not every melanated individual eats pork. Not every melanated individual eats or consumes white rice or white sugar. And I remember in 2019, I let this guy come and stay with me for a couple of days, and he observed my daily living habits, and he was complaining because I made some tea and I started using agave nectar in 2018. So instead of buying sugar, I buy agave nectar. And I was noticing that when I made my pitcher of tea, I was really like using the agave nectar to sweeten a whole pitcher. And I'm like, there's gotta be a much simpler way to save my agave nectar, because I'm not about to keep running to the store to buy a $7, $9, $10 bottle of agave nectar. And so basically I started to ration my agave nectar, and so I would take a cup, pour some agave nectar, and then pour my tea, take a spoon, proper way, civilized. And this dude accused me of acting white. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. How is me doing this equivalated to me acting white? How does me speaking properly, using proper grammar as we are educated to do, me acting white? No, you just want to be uneducated. And I was a supervisor at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport at the age of 19, managing people twice my age group. I've seen a lot. Like, I met these two young boys that were 11 years old, and they spoke fluent English and German. And that's when I knew we are severely miseducated here in the U.S. And so I had to start educating myself. You cannot expect for your adversaries to educate you, especially when their very livelihood and existence depends on you being illiterate. And this is why Joe Biden made that statement that if you didn't vote for him, you weren't black. You're correct. That's the only thing you've ever said that was correct, Joe Biden. I'm not black. I am much more than black. I am much more than African American. Je suis de le Washington. Je viens de la Nouvelle-Orléans de Washington. Long live the Washington. So yeah, that's my little story for today. And so, if you didn't know, now you know. Washington Nation is not listed in the Social Security database because we are outside of their commercial jurisdiction at large. And the only way that they can gain jurisdiction is by you adhering to the all capital name, which in Latin translates to in capitis diminutio maxima, which, if you didn't know, to be an in capitis diminutio maxima, all capital letters, means that you are a slave, because it literally translates to all loss of rights. So when your name is in all capital letters, albeit unknowns to you or to certain members and agents of the public departments, but they're basically claiming you as a slave. And so Kanye West asked that question in 2016, how are we still slaves? And I'm telling you now why. Because you're continuing to use in all capital letters, you're continuing to be less than who you were born to be. You're continuing to kill your Aboriginal Native brothers and sisters out of a lack of knowledge and literacy. And it's truly sad, but we are the new leaders of today's time. And, y'all can continue to pray to whoever you want to pray to, but you can't get upset when people don't want to fuck with you. Like, I literally saw somebody get upset in Atlanta because this African man did not want to, I'm not going to say continue, because he didn't even want to start, but he didn't want to have the conversation with her because she was still stuck in her black state of mentality, and she's wondering, how are these African people coming here and getting all of these benefits, and they're thriving, they have businesses. And it's because they know that we, in our in capitis diminutio minima status, we're not even lawfully citizens. And so the biggest lie that mainstream media continually perpetuates is that melanated people, African Americans or black people, make up less than a so-called percentage of the population. No, we are the majority in the Americas, and you are the minority. And so that is my main issue with mainstream media today, is that they continue to peddle this lie. But again, their entire existence is off of eating off of us. And when you proclaim your nationality, you can stop all of that leeching, because that's really all it is. And one thing I've learned, because I was taken advantage of a lot in my youthful days before turning 18, nobody's going to eat off me if they're not adding to my motherfucking plate. So, pilgrims, if you're not adding to my plate, you're trying to eat off my plate, and that I just won't allow. So y'all better get to the drawing board. Like Madison Cawthorn said, he wanted to introduce a new constitution and shit. Like, yeah, they did that in Australia, which Australia is a British Crown territory. Not the whole of Australia, but certain regions of Australia they laid claim to. And then once they created the United States de facto, they continued to use the United States de facto institution to claim even more land and to set up these U.S. military bases on other people's soil. So that's all of my story. I feel like the real reason that this is happening is because Social Security wants to see my handwriting, but I'm not going to write this letter. I'm going to type it up like I type up all of my lawful legal litigation paperwork for courts. And so that will consist of my tribal nation's flag in the left-hand corner, the seal of the United States, which is the bald eagle with the 13 stars in the circle above its head, the hex alpha emblem. And on the very right, the Kingdom of Morocco, the Moroccan flag. And I was told to address it to the agency's supervisor, and a telephone interview would be conducted. So yeah, it's funny, but at the end of the day, I was well justified to go off on them hoes, because you're committing fraud, and I'm aware of it. And everybody's eating off of the taxpayers. And like I said, like this, the United States is, I don't want to say it's doomed, but people owe Trump a lot, because Trump is truly showing just how much he loves his life here in North America, and that he is in allegiance with the Washita tribal nation leaders. Because baby, the CIA, the FBI, none of them have jurisdiction of Micah Elevate and Capitis Diminutio Minima at all points in times. I have the right to self-identify. I have the right to self-govern. Thank you, United Nations. Thank you to all of the wonderful people, regardless of your national origin, who are working, not going to say day and night, but, working hard to educate us here in North America on how miseducated we have been by this corporation. And if the Pope has come here and given apologies, it's a wrap. It's a big wrap for Biden and Kamala, and I feel so sorry for them. But lying is just not okay. And a lot of these major cable networks, they're going to be cut for giving fraudulent misinformation. And one thing that I've noticed real quick before I end this video, a lot of the news stations, like whenever you would see like slanderous headlines about Moors doing things, trying to secure, their own homes and shit. A lot of the organization news networks that covered these stories were small independent newscasting agencies. So when they get the slap on the motherfucking wrist, when they get the slap on the ass that they've actually been peddling misinformation, the major news networks aren't held liable for that slander. Because Fox does a great job at highlighting who the Aboriginal Indigenous people are. Fox does a good job of highlighting Moorish accolades and accomplishments. But a lot of these other independent news, they're not really independent because apparently all, the FCC is owned by a small group of European people. And so, it makes you wonder, like, now that Europe has been ransacked by most of these foreigners, who's really the man behind the curtain putting up all this motherfucking smoke in the mirror? And so we are very, very close to reaching this level of autonomy and independence. But we must do better, y'all. We must educate our children and teach them the truth now, not later. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I am Rejan Damarki Leve of the Washita Americano Sovereign Empirical Nation. And I am standing posted in my estate. Shout out to the King of Morocco and shout out to Moulay Hassan El Hassan. Nothing but love for you, brother. Stay strong for your nation.